Uh, Namaste, all of you. I'm extremely glad that our school has come out with yet another virtual session for the benefit of students. Generally, when we talk about science and technology, we talk about electronics, we talk about mechanical, we talk about IT field, we talk about space technology, several other things. Equally important, yet another field is oceanography and ocean technology. We had been thinking about this particular field for quite some time. We wanted to give awareness about this particular field for quite some time. I'm extremely glad that this event could be made possible today. This event, honestly speaking, has been made possible because of the alumni initiative. Thanks to our former student, Mrs. Purnima Sridhar, because of whom this event was made possible. Purnima is the managing director of an organization called the Sapling Academy, which trains students for IIT, JEE, and also SAT. Uh, and she also trains several research scholars across the globe. Uh, so I'm extremely glad that Purnima is still associated with our school and looks for opportunity in every possible way to be of some great use to our institution, especially for the students. I'm extremely glad that Purnima has made this possible. We have with us today two of our staff members along with a group of kids from grade 9 and grade 11. Mrs. Anandi Mani, Vice Principal Academics, who had always been a big strength for our institution in initiating events like these. And Mrs. Vaishnavi, who's the Higher Secondary Coordinator, also a former student of our school, who then joined our institution as a primary teacher and then middle school teacher, then the high school science teacher, and later on taken over as the high school coordinator, handles all issues related to high and high school, ably assisted by and supported by our executive vice principal, Mrs. Pratima Vishwanathan. She is the mentor for Vaishnavi. So I'm extremely glad that we have this kind of a group with us. And the main speaker today, Mrs. Aarti Nair. I just want to take few minutes to read out a very brief profile about her. Um, if I have to speak about a very young lady, but she has years of rich experience in several fields. Aarti has a rich experience in signal processing and programming with few years of experience in Cognizant. As a software developer, she decided to take a diversion and learn various other avenues where she could apply her knowledge of programming. She scored extremely well in her GATE examination and enrolled for Masters in Technology in Remote Sensing and Wireless Sensor Networks. One of the areas where signal processing, programming, and remote sensing and WSN comes together is the exploration of oceans. With unparalleled dedication and passion, Aarti is pursuing a career in marine exploration as project scientist with National Institute of Ocean Technology. Many of you who had been traveling quite often to Velachery, you wouldn't have missed NIOT. Definitely, you wouldn't have missed out. I'm extremely glad that Aarti is with us. I'm not going to take too much of time. I request Purnima to speak few words, and with that, we will move on to Aarti, who has several things to share with all of you. Thank you very much.
It's always been a pleasure to be associated with Nadation. Whatever I am, wherever I stand today, it's because of the school. I owe my everything to my school, Madam Principal and Madam Vice Principal. And I thank Aarti from the bottom of my heart that she joined us on such a short notice. Thank you, Aarti. We are looking forward to hear you, Aarti. I don't want to take much of your time.
Thank you, Purnima. Thank you, Gayatri ma'am. Thank you, Anandi ma'am. I also thank my teachers in this place who has also inspired me to take up my field of interest and pursue it, and always been a source of inspiration to me as well. So actually seeing you teachers, it gave me a nostalgic feeling about my school life, and how you interact with the kids actually remind me of my teachers. And I also take this platform to thank them, as well as to tell the kids that you are very lucky that you have such dedicated teachers and you are in safe hands. So coming to the, and also I take this opportunity to thank Purnima, whom I can, she is my very good friend, and I don't know what to say, and she is also an inspiration to me. Uh, and then coming to our topic of discussion today, oceanography. If you see oceanography, it is a vast field. So if I go on talking, I can talk for hours and hours. Maybe you can take it up as a course as well for 4 years even. So I won't be dealing with all the theoretical aspects of how various phenomena in ocean are happening, because that you can get and learn through various avenues you have. You have things like internet now, you can read through blogs, you have so many books, so that you can get a basic preliminary understanding or fundamental understanding of what is happening in the oceans and the phenomena. But what we generally miss out is there are certain practical aspects of oceanography which we generally don't know, or why people generally don't share those things in books or theoretical books, or like in discussions, theoretical discussions. So I'll dedicate my time to and making you understand the practical aspects of oceanography or the limitations that we face in understanding oceans. So let me start. Okay. Madam, shall you just enable the screen sharing? It's not, I am unable to share my screen.
Yes, probably. We are able to view your screen, madam.
Yeah, you are able to view, right? So shall
Yes.
I start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, just given an introduction of what you can expect from this session. And coming to what Madam has already, Ananthi Madam was already telling that you already know a lot about space technology. So this is an ISRO mission page. So you can see a lot of missions like in hundreds of numbers, and you have 8 missions starting with A, 3 missions with B, and it all extends till Y. So coming to oceanography, people really know very little. There has been a recent news that we are planning a manned mission, and NIOT is preparing for a manned mission now. So just imagine, after so many space missions, underwater mission is happening, a manned underwater mission is happening just now. So that is, it means it's really complex. Why? Because oceans are not so important? No. See, our land or our earth, it's covered by 75%, 71% of water. And still almost all the water are concentrated in oceans. But still we know very less of oceans. To be precise, the lunar surface, you know more about moon. There are people who have secured some land in moon, it seems. So lunar surface we know a lot about. Even with a 7 meter resolution, it is mapped. So we know where the hill is there, where a valley is there, everything is there. So ocean floor, it is not mapped to that level or to that resolution. You hardly get a 5 kilometer resolution of ocean floor. So why is it so? Why is there so much discrepancy in knowing about the space and knowing about the oceans? So many people, scientists have themselves said that we hardly know very little about oceans than the space or the moon in general. So, is it because our world oceans or our oceans as such are not of so importance? No, it is not because of that. Our oceans are really, really very important. So, the air we breathe, almost 50% is contributed by the oceans. So, photosynthesis is also happening in the oceans like it happens in the land. So, oxygen, a major contribution of oxygen comes from the oceans, and carbon dioxide sink. Ocean is also a big carbon dioxide sink, And climate regulation, we say a lot of emphasis on global warming right now. So in this scenario, the oceans become really important because most of the climate regulation are done by the oceans themselves. And coming to the economy point of view, we have transportation which are happening through oceans and which is earning a lot of revenue for the country. This is for US. It is from NOAA website, which is a oceanic administration of US agency, but these numbers are generally true for even India also. Then recreation, so many enjoyment activities are happening, recreation wise activities are happening, tourism is happening related to oceans. And economy, fishing, all those things are there. And even developing nations especially put lot of importance of derivation of protein sources, that is a fish from oceans. Then coming to medicines, major elements of medicines which are contributed by oceans. Many trace metals are there now in oceans. So oceans are so much important, but we are not giving too much of, but we hardly know very little. So coming to ocean floor, when you think of ocean floor, it is not just like a very nice plain land. Likewise, land is there, same way ocean is also there. You have so many features on the topography features like we see in land. Ocean floor also has so many features. So it has plains, it has mountains, it has slopes, it has trenches, it has valleys. So ocean is also very diverse. And then we need to understand all these things. How we can understand the extent of ocean is so much that we cannot just go to ship and map every land feature that is happening in the ocean. And the mapping of oceanography, the term is called as bathymetry. When it comes to ship, it is very difficult to map each of the ocean floor because of the vastness. So one technique is using remote sensing, which has helped us to map the ocean floor to a larger extent and with a much higher resolution. And extending the remote sensing application in oceanography, there are so many parameters of ocean that we are looking at through remote sensing of satellites, be it sea surface temperature, suspended solid, chlorophyll, potential fishing zone, all these contents. Like why chlorophyll content is important is large amount of chlorophyll content indicates that there is lot of phytoplanktons there. That means there will be lot of fishes there, so that fishermen, you can give fishermen that this area will be having so many fishes, and you can go and get much more fishes from that area compared to other areas. So all these areas are there. So is remote sensing everything that we can through act the only medium through which we can know about the oceans? No. Why? Because oceans are extending in XY direction, like in a 2-dimensional, as well as ocean has a 3-dimensional feature, that is the depth. All you can get through remote sensing is only the 2-dimensional features. So all these expressions are only 2-dimensional expressions of ocean. There is much more in the deeper 3 dimension, that is the depth of the ocean. So when it comes to oceanography, madam was saying, she was Ananthi madam, before the interaction we had a little bit of interaction before the start of the session, and she was saying she is from physics. So physics itself is contributing a lot to understanding of oceans. If you want to understand the currents, waves, and also the sonar or sound wave propagation in ocean, physics is the subject you need to know. And similarly, chemistry, biology, geography, geology, astronomy, all these fields come into ocean. So to understand ocean, it is not just one single field. Like oceanography cannot be studied as a one single field. It is an amalgamation of many different fields, or you need to have knowledge of all these fields to have a better understanding of oceans. So that is where the oceanography actually is very different. And coming to our understanding, always ocean present a hostile environment. Hostile, it is not so friendly, and we face a lot of difficulties in understanding ocean. That is what that is what restricts us from the knowledge that we could gain about the ocean. So, what are these features that we are actually, what is being restricting us? So coming to understanding of oceans, I have already mentioned that in addition to the 2 dimension, that is the length and the breadth, or the lat and the long, we have a third dimension, that is the depth. so that we have to go inside oceans and get the parameters of oceans. You cannot just have it through a remote sensing satellite or an aircraft or something like that. We have to have dedicated platforms which can carry sensors. You have something like a PSLV vehicle, launch vehicle of missions, right? What are these launch vehicles taking? They are taking sensors with them. But these vehicles acts as something like a carrier for the other sensors can be taken to the correct environment, so that these sensors can record the parameters. That is what these platforms are. Similarly, like launch vehicles, we also have platform for oceans. It can be just a ship that you can see down, or it can be a floating body which just floats according on the surface of the ocean, gets, and it has sensors attached to it and gets all the parameters. It can be fixed at a particular place, or it can be like a robot, or it can be uh, a floating platform which has lot of like this is a robot, and this is a glider. This actually glides through the ocean. We can say to which place it has to glide. So it will just glide all the depth and take parameters and release it. So that is what is happening. There is underwater vehicles which go till depths of 6,000 meters. Then we have another drilling machine platforms. All those things are there. So these are the kind of launch vehicles you can equate. Launch vehicles which takes the sensors on board of satellites to something like these platforms related to marine. Then coming, this is from NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. This is a major, uh, you can say, organization related to US. And these many platforms, you can see these many platforms are being established in ocean. So in Pacific, Indian, Atlantic Ocean. So you can see a lot of platforms being established in oceans, which senses the elements like wave height, wave parameters, and all, and is sending to the store stations. And there, at the store stations, they will analyze this data and say any event is occurring. For example, tsunami. We have various tsunami buoys being dropped into the ocean at various places. These buoys will be reading the data and sending to INCOIS in case of India, or NIOT, and there the data are processed and said that any event has happened, so that we can disseminate the information to save lives of millions of people. So coming to ocean, what exactly is the difference between land-based or remote sensing based observation of space, and ocean is the use of electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves, or in general light, you can say. Most of the observation of space is happening with the use of light. You see things and you de- de- uh, devise information from that. But in case of oceans, electromagnetic wave doesn't propagate, or light doesn't propagate further beyond 1,000 meters. Hardly it propagates till 1,000 meters, and beyond 1,000 meters it's completely dark. There is no light inside. So this is a major restricting factor in understanding oceans. You have the sunlit zone only till 200 meters, and coming to 1,000 meters, and after 1,000 meters, there is no light at all. So most of the organisms, or most of the phytoplanktons are found in this first 200 meters only. So this is a major difference between oceans and space, the use of electromagnetic waves. Then coming to another restricting factor, it is the pressure. As you go deep down the ocean, the pressure increases tremendously. Like for every 10 meter you go down, the pressure increases by 1 bar. So at the bottom of the ocean, there is a tremendous amount of pressure that instrument has to face. So this is not the case with space, where there is vacuum. So that is a major difference which is there between the space and oceans. So these are certain pictures that you can see here. This is one cup which is taken at 0 meters, that is a land, and then it is taken down to 1,500 meters. See how the pressure has affected the cup. It has shrunk because of the pressure that was applied on it. See, these are kind of instrument housing or casing that you can see. This is subjected to a pressure, and see how it has how this particular thing has taken its shape. It has completely lost its shape. Imagine the things that are being stored inside this particular vessel. Everything will be crushed. So how will we take care of our electronics? If we say the atmospheric pressure on land is about 1 atmosphere, so if you go down the ocean, it is increasing every 10 meters. You see by 1 bar. So all these electronics which are designed for land, which we are using here, cannot be taken as such inside oceans. We need to keep them in something called as pressure housing. So we have separate pressure housing each for and that is rated for different depth. Suppose if you want to take a particular housing for 10-meter depth, it is designed for 10-meter depth. You can take it to 100-meter depth. So same way, if it is defined for 100-meter depth, it cannot be taken to 1,000-meter depth. So it should be uh, designed in such a way that it can withstand the pressure, or it should be pressure rated to the depth which you need to use it. So even for the wires that we generally use, like here, for connecting certain things like the small wires, and you will be familiar in your physics classes that you will be using wires for connection. So we have special wires even for connecting things under ocean. So these are special grade ocean wires that are called underwater cables. So these kind of special wires also we require. So everything inside, when you take underwater, everything a special kind of thing is required. Even this pressure housing, the kind of materials that we are going to use, the thickness of the material, all these depend upon the depth to which you need to take the instrument. And then coming to another restricting factor, it is the temperature. Temperature decreases drastically. Suppose you have a surface temperature of 32 degrees Celsius. It comes to down, and beyond 1,000 meters, it decreases drastically, and it reaches almost to 2 degrees centigrade. So the instrument should be able to work in that kind of harsh environment, to a like 35 degree to 2 degrees. And also these things are certain restricting factors while we make an instrument or while we design an instrument. Similarly, another parameter of ocean is the salinity. Salinity also increases drastically as we go down. Coming to another big restricting factor, like we put satellites outside Earth, and it goes on rotating for like so many years and all. So without any problem, but the same thing cannot happen inside oceans because of the marine corrosion. So due to corrosion, the lifespan of the devices is greatly reduced, as well as fouling, marine biofouling, which is the deposition of the algae. If you see here, there is an instrument here. This is a sensing area. If the sensing area is covered by algae, the instrument is of no use. It will give erroneous readings. So you cannot use the instrument for a longer time because of fouling. Similarly, the second picture is showing a lighting device and the algal formation on the lights. So if algae is formed on the lights, you can never use it. For camera also, the same problem is happening. So this also restricts a lot on the use of device for a long term. And coming to another big important issue is the power. Like we all have our smartphones, and our smartphones are smart only as long as it has battery. Once the battery is drained out, it is of no use. So same way, these instruments, it doesn't have anything like a charging point. It all depends upon the battery which is included in that. So for all these operations, going up, collecting sensors, all these operations, it depends solely upon the battery on it. So if you are going down, you need to have higher capacity battery. For you using higher capacity battery, your device should be, or your platform should be very large. If the platform is very large, to operate that you need bigger ships. That increases the cost of the mission. Like you bigger ships cost more, and for deployment of the device, and that itself is costing more. So that is one of the very restricting factors. So even design of battery source for oceanic instruments or oceanic platform is a big headache. And coming to another problem we are facing is underwater communication. Now we are talking in gigabytes or 100 Mbps speed in land, and we are streaming video, live video, all these things. These are possible in land, but nothing of this sort is possible under oceans. You know why? Because electromagnetic waves doesn't work under oceans. So we need to have something else. All this development that has happened in land, we cannot extend that to ocean. We need to have a different kind of setup under oceans for communicating with the device which once it is underwater. So we use sound waves generally for communication underwater, and it's called as acoustic communication. And for shorter communications, like you can see this blue line here, we can use light. Blue light generally is being used, but it is only for short distance, like hardly within 10 meters, 1 meter or 2 meter. Even RF is also under 10 meter only it can be used. So all other communication is only possible through acoustic communication or through sound. So sound has very less data rate, so that also affects the amount of data that can be captured and being sent to the device. So much of attenuation is happening, so much of signal loss is happening. That is also one critical area in oceanography, or like a restricting factor in oceanography. And coming to the communication, that actually how we establish, supposing the particular device or a buoy, you say floating device is called as buoy. So some instrument platform is taken, it is always equipped with antennas which can communicate with the satellite, which is a generally low earth orbiting satellite. And from the satellite transmit to the shore station. If any device or any gauges are near the shore, through high frequency transmission or through radar, communication will happen. So this is how in general, if you all of you might be knowing about the term tsunami. Because that is when we talk about oceans, generally people think about tsunami, how tsunami detection is being happen. So it is like this: some instrument is sitting underneath the seabed, and it is taking the readings of the sea level. And when anything is happening, an earthquake is happening, a trigger is being sent to this kind of a surface buoy, and surface buoy transmit it to the satellite. Then from the satellite it transmit to the store station and gives an alarm, so that we can disseminate information to the general public that some kind of event or mishap is going to happen, and people be cautious. And coming to all these things are kind of restricting factors that we generally face in oceanography for understanding of oceans. And then these things are in general practical side of oceanography. Coming to NIOT has been established under Ministry of Earth Sciences, and it is catering to mainly development of technologies related to ocean, and so many value added features, how we can use oceans to give a societal impact as well as improve the economic conditions based upon ocean related resources. So NIOT is also diverse in the things that it does. We have a coastal engineering department which is mainly catering to the shoreline protection, and soil erosion and also coastal erosion and all, and what can be done to prevent such a thing, like a coastal erosion. What can be the steps that can be taken if any kind of uh, construction is being to start in oceans? What are the kind of geophysical investigations that need to be done? That is being undertaken by coastal and environmental engineering department. Then, as you know, oceans contain lot of diverse organisms that is being taken care of by the Marine Biotechnology Group. And deep sea mining, which caters to the extraction of mineral resources from oceans. And ocean observation systems, you have seen so many platforms. These are handled, the data from these platforms and the platforms maintenance are handled by the ocean observation system department. And energy and fresh water, right now we are facing lot of issues regarding potable drinking water, right? So this group is catered to generating fresh water from ocean water, and also production of ocean energy, like renewable ocean as a renewable energy source. And then comes to marine sensor systems, so many platforms we have seen. So many sensors need to be attached to understand what exactly are happening inside the oceans, so that we can get the ocean parameters and their variations. So these sensors are being developed by the marine sensor systems. And coming to ocean electronics, so there are a lot of technologies which are well developed outside India, and when you need to import all these things, there is lot of amount involved. So this group is taking care of the indigenization of the various technologies, so that we can say like Atmanirbhar Bharat or Made in India kind of a feature is being added to by Ocean Electronics Group. Coming to acoustics, we have seen that only sound kind acoustic is only method of communication under oceans. So this department is mainly catering to those kind of needs, like what all things are through acoustics, how we can get to know more about oceans, or seabed classification, or image processing using sonar. All these things are being handled by the Ocean Acoustics Group. And coming to vessel management cell, this is one of the major groups or departments in NIOT. NIOT has a lot of research vessels. These are managed by the Vessel Management Cell or VMC. Like if anybody has to go for a deployment of various sensors, platforms and all, we have to depend upon the Vessel Management Cell for the deployment, schedule the field trip, or you can say cruise with the Vessel Management Cell, and take our things to oceans. Okay, and then coming to the end of the session, we are reaching the end of the session now. And all these resources are natural resources. And when we are talking about natural resources, we cannot stop by just telling about natural resources. Like we also need to conserve these features, because these are kind of gifts that are given to us. And the major conservation mantra for any, even if it is connect to environment, land-based environment or ocean, it is always the 3 R's: reduce, recycle, and reuse. So this is a main mantra that we have to follow even when we are talk about marine conservation. So we should be wise enough in all our doings, and we should be conscious about our actions also, and how it is going to affect the other organism or our planet as in general. So with this, I just have reached to the end of my session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So any questions are there, you can please ask.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Aarti, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you,
Annavi,
madam.
Annavi, can
Yes.
we go?
Yes, madam.
Annavi?
Yes, madam. Being an alumni initiative, I'm very happy that we have an alumni staff of the school anchoring the session. That peps up the whole thing. That is what I feel. Over to you, Vaishnavi. Before that, thank you, Aarti, madam. Being a project scientist at NIO, coming to the level of students, even we as teachers are taken aback that so many challenges are involved when it comes to marine exploration. So thank you so much for being comprehensive and simple, though being a project scientist, having to deal with things at a very high level, you had simplified it and put everything in a nutshell. Over to you, Vaishnavi. Thank you so much. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's begin with our questionnaire session. First, we have Shravan Kumar Chaudhary of grade 9, who's topper in Vedic Maths, and he's interested in exploring about career options in oceanology.
Okay.
Over to you, Shravan Kumar.
Thank you, Vaishnavi Miss. Namaste, Aarti ma'am.
Namaste.
My question is, what is the most important thing that we should remember to become an ocean scientist?
See, if you have seen the session, where we have told about what exactly is oceanography, right? So it is not just one single subject that is coming into understanding of oceans. We have so many subjects being involved. The basic thing that we cannot study everything in our limited lifespan. Even if you are living till 100 years of age, you cannot just study all the things. So we need to be open to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Suppose you are learning something in 9th standard, when you probably reach in college level, you will say that all those things you have studied in school might be wrong when you reach to the level of college grad. So you should be open to the process of continuous learning throughout your life, and you should be ready to accept things as well as to question things, and also have an attitude of perseverance. Be it any scientist, any researcher, or any job you are into, perseverance is the most important quality that you should be imbibed in yourself, so that you can be a good researcher, a good scientist, especially in the field of oceanography.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shravan. Next, we have Rishi Kumar of grade 9, who wanted to be a doctor. His interest in sea creatures made him here today to know about ocean energy. Rishi Kumar, over to you.
Thank you for introducing me, ma'am. I'm going to ask you, what are the most interesting and emerging technologies on ocean energy? And what advice would you give us regarding career option in ocean energy, ma'am?
Good question, Rishi. It's like right now, most of the energy crisis we are facing is having to depend upon our depleting energy sources like petrol or diesel, and we have to go for a renewable energy source. Likewise, in my lecture, I also talked about the limitation of the power, which is posing a lot of trouble in getting to understand about the ocean. So right now we are concentrating more on the renewable energy with respect to ocean, generating energy with respect to ocean, especially like wave energy. We could tap wave energy, or as well as the thermal gradient energy, or the ocean current. These are the three aspects in ocean renewable energy that is the current trend in ocean renewable energy generation. So in ocean energy, I think these are the current trends, and you can study more about that. And also the temperature, exploiting the temperature gradient of the oceans, and then and that as a source of energy generation is like enthusiastically looked into these days. Okay, thank you, Shravan. I mean, thank you, Rishi. Right.
Thank you, ma'am. I love your answer.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, ma'am. Now we have a question from an artist, Aravind of grade 9. Aravind, you can ask your question now.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste, ma'am. Could you please share with us the most recent predictions about the changes in ocean phenomena?
Okay. Hi, Aravind. Nice question. So you all know about global warming. You all might be aware about global warming. So global warming is also causing a lot of trouble to oceans in general. Like the sea surface temperature, which is being recorded by the satellites, we can see that during the last decade, the sea surface temperature are increasing, which result in the melting of ice or glaciers in the poles. And this, what happens is, this will result in the rise in sea level, which might cause flooding and soil erosion, and also coastal erosion, all these things. And also ecological changes like ecosystem, as such many organisms might not be able to survive in higher temperatures. So all these kind of phenomena are happening. These are the ocean phenomena that is being changed right now, that we should be really careful about. Rise in sea surface temperature.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we move on to the other person from grade 9, S. Mahalakshmi, who is concerned about marine environment. Mahalakshmi, you can ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Vaishnavi. Namaste, ma'am. I gained more information from your presentation, ma'am. Here is my question. What is the approximate cumulative population level in marine environment in comparison with land? How can marine climate be protected to the maximum extent, ma'am?
See, nice question, Mahalashmi. Like when we talk about conservation of oceans, or I'll answer your first question first. So, about the approximate population of oceans is much more than what is found in land. Ocean extent is more than land, so the population of oceans is extremely high compared to what is in land. And it is extremely important that we conserve our marine environment, because almost in our first few slides we have mentioned why ocean is important, because ocean is giving 50% of the oxygen. So something is happening to the marine environment, that means the oxygen that we are getting is reduced, and also the carbon dioxide level will go up. So marine conservation is extremely important in this case, and what we can do is to use that 3R mantra: reduce, recycle, and reuse. And also be conscious about all your doings. Like if you are aware, nowadays there is a campaign like how to cut the milk packet. This is, everybody buys a Avon milk packet at home, right? So how to cut it? You generally just take it, cut it, and the small piece of plastic you just throw, and the big piece of plastic you put in dustbin. Even that small piece of plastic accumulates over the years. That itself is causing a big headache to the land. So if you can reduce that itself, so through your conscious efforts, and you tell other people also, see, this is also important. This small step in cutting your milk packet itself is important. So be conscious and be aware of your actions for the conservation of anything, even be marine or planet as such.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have Dawood Marwa of grade 9, who's very much interested in arts and crafts, learning new vocabularies, and exploring about marine organisms. Dawood Marwa, you can ask a question.
Thank you, Vaishnavi miss. Namaste, ma'am. I have a question with you. Does dissolved oxygen in ocean varies for a period of time, and in what way it affects the marine organisms?
Dissolved oxygen period of time, in the sense you are asking whether it is increase or decrease, like seasonal variation is there, or over the trend, what is happening? What exactly is the meaning?
Increase or decrease in period of time.
Okay. See, dissolved oxygen, why it is important is like oxygen is required for us to breathe. It is required for the fishes also to breathe, right? So dissolved oxygen is really important in case of marine environment. And dissolved oxygen level is being taken care of by the photosynthesis that is happening in the ocean. That too we have discussed in one of our slides, like only till first 200 layers only sunlight is coming. So sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. So all this photosynthetic processes or photosynthetic algae is present in the first few layer, first 200 meters in ocean. So it is dissolved oxygen level doesn't increase or decrease if we see like if the ocean environment is maintained, but because of our activity, global warming, all these things, ocean circulation is deeply affected. So ocean circulation is important to replenish the dissolved oxygen, and the circulation, if the circulation of ocean is affected, the dissolved oxygen level will surely vary. So it can result in the any hindrance to this circulation, ocean, global ocean belt it is called, the circulation in ocean, which is mainly taking care of the nutritional aspect of the ocean and the dissolved oxygen level and all. So if it is affected, it will in turn affect the photosynthetic algae, which in turn affect the marine organism, which in turn affect the marine ecosystem as such. So marine conservation is very important if you see all these aspects of oceanography. Yes, decreased dissolved oxygen does vary. It has, if it decreases, it is going to be a big headache for the fishes as well as to us.
Thank you, ma'am, for your answer.
Thank you, Aarti ma'am, for a clear explanation. Next, we have grade 11 student, Hasini. She has varied interest from vocal music to exploring scientific concepts. Let's see what she's exploring today. Hasini, over to you.
Thank you, Vaishnavi ma'am. Namaste, ma'am. This is my question. What are the critical interactions among ocean, ice, land, and atmosphere in polar region, and how will they influence the physical and biological changes? Can you tell, ma'am?
Mm, there is a deep interaction that is happening in ocean, ice, and land. You cannot just say ocean as one single entity, on land as another entity, or ice as another entity. So all these are a part of a bigger picture. So interaction do happen between ocean, ice, and land. As I was answering the earlier question, I was talking about a global ocean conveyor belt. So these are this is a major contributor to the this is like how ocean currents are circulating inside ocean. So at the polar regions only, the dissolved oxygen is being replenished and sent back to the equatorial regions. So our global warming as such has resulted in the increase in temperature, which result in melting of ice caps, right? So the dissolved oxygen level is also can also decrease because of this effect. So this interaction between ocean, ice, and land is also important in climate predictions as well. Like if your warm air is there, then we get more precipitation in the nearby lands. If the air is so cold, we won't be able to get the precipitation, and it will be like an arid climate. So our weather patterns, everything are dependent upon the interaction between ocean, land, as well as ice. So all these entities should be taken together to understand the interactions, and not looked at one entity as such. I hope it's clear to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your clarification.
Thank you. Thank you, Hasini.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Hasini. Next, we have Imayan of Standard 9, who is a good orator and is very good at solving puzzles. He is going to put forth a thoughtful question to you, ma'am. Over to you, Imayan.
Thank you, Vaishnavi miss. Namaste, ma'am. My question is, we have boundaries on land, but how can one identify boundaries in oceans, and how seabed exploration is done?
See, if you look at land, the land are the boundaries being marked, or the continents are being marked based on the position of oceans, right? So it is like, if you see my first slide, I haven't put understanding our oceans. I have put only understanding our ocean. There is only one single ocean as such, and we name it based on this proximity to land. Like Indian Ocean, this proximate, because of its name, so because of its proximity to India. Then we have Pacific, Atlantic, Arctic, Antarctic, right? So all this, there is like a single world ocean which are interconnected, and we have named it accordingly because of the proximity to land. There is nothing like Indian Ocean ends at particular lat and then Pacific Ocean begins. No, it is not like that. It is a single ocean and single water, and there is no nothing like a boundary for oceans.
And
Is
how
that
seabed exploration is done, ma'am?
a seabed exploration? I hope you have seen, remember one of the slides where I talked about bathymetry. Bathymetry is actually seabed exploration or sea topographic exploration. If you go, it is usually can be done by ships, where we use sound-based echo sounders, as well as it can be done by remote sensing, where we use satellite altimeters. Like from satellites, we have altimeters to measure the land. So because of certain features in the ocean, the level of the water changes accordingly. If there is a mountainous kind of feature, there will be a up the curve like water level, and there is a valley, there will be the corresponding decrease or increase in the ocean level, depending upon the features under the sea. So this upper sea surface features can be measured using satellite altimeter. That way we can map the seabed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Imayan. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have R.S. Shabin of grade 9, who is very good at maths and cricket. Usually, he likes to spend his leisure time by the seaside. So that's why he's here to ask an interesting question to you, ma'am. Over to you, Shabin.
Thank you, Vaishnavi Miss. Namaste, madam. My
Namaste,
question is
Shabin.
about ocean depth. What techniques are used to measure the ocean depth? Are there instruments to check the purity of seawater, ma'am?
See, we talked about platforms and instruments associated with ocean. No? So there are instruments which can measure the depth of the ocean at which the instrument is present. And also, like for answering the previous question, I said because of satellite altimetry, you can also understand the depth of oceans. And coming to purity of seawater, if you see like the water which we generally drink, it is like TDS level is there, and beyond this TDS level the water is considered not safe to drink, and all the presence of algae or something like that, it characterizes the quality of the drinking water, right? So these kind of measures, I don't know whether any such thing as pure seawater is there. So seawater is always seawater, and the constituents of the salts vary accordingly. Like I have presented in one of my slides, I talked about the variation in salinity. Salinity is in fact the amount of salts that are present in seawater. So it varies with respect to depth. So how it varies, or at what point it is, how it is salinity is behaving, we have instruments to measure the salinity at each point in ocean, as well as we have instruments to measure the depth, and that is generally called as a CTD, conductivity temperature depth instrument.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful explanation.
Thank you, Shabin.
Thank you, Shabin. Thank you, madam. Next, we have a grade 11 student, Visagini, who has won number of prizes in slogan recitation competitions, and she's good at maths. She wishes that our beaches should be clean. Let's hear from her.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Miss. Namaste, ma'am. I like the way you ended your presentation with the mantra. My question is, over 1,000 kg of plastics had been found at a beach near Panaji in Goa. What steps would you suggest that we could take to avoid this?
Yeah, that mantra is the steps that we have to take to avoid such things. Another big thing is we should be conscious about our actions, as I have already explained, and also about the plastic. The even simple thing that we are generally doing at home, I have explained, the cutting of the milk cover. Every day that we are doing, every household is doing. Just imagine 100 people, they're sending that small things, and in a cumulative level how much it is amounting. So we should be careful even about the smaller actions that we are taking, and we should be aware of the consequences of the action that we are taking. And also that if you just think that even the sound pollution in ocean is affecting the marine organisms. In all the lectures we have seen, sound is the only way that we can communicate inside ocean, right? So even marine organisms communicate with each other using sound. So if you are causing sound pollution in ocean itself, that will cause difficulty to the organisms, that will cause trouble in their mating processes, which will in turn cause dwindling of their population. All these effects are there. So plastics always use should be limited, and fertilizers that we are using, it should be limited. Ultimately some surface runoff will and essentially go into the oceans. That also causes decline in phytoplanktons as well as ocean marine organisms. In turn will affect the ecosystem, ocean marine ecosystem, and the ocean as such.
Thank you.
So, I hope it's clear now.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Yeah, ma'am, it's clear. Next, we have Vijayalakshmi of grade 11. She aspires to be a doctor. and she wanted you to share some of your experiences with her, madam. Over to you, Vijayalakshmi.
Thank you, Vaishnavi, Miss, for giving me opportunity to interact with the project scientist, Mrs. Orti, ma'am. Namaste, ma'am. Today, my question is, have you ever had experience of your research proposal was the least successful in securing a grant? Could you please share such experience, ma'am, please?
Vijayalakshmi, very nice question. And at this point, I would like to point out there is a great deal of difference that is being happening in an academic institution and an institution like NIOT. Like academic institution, generally the people will propose some kind of a project and they secure a grant and then they are pursuing the project. It is not the way that is happening in NIOT, institution like NIOT. So here we generally have to conceive a project and study about the feasibility of the project, societal impact of the project, as well as once a project has come, whether it is giving any kind of uh, societal feedback. So whether it is giving any positive effect on the society or negative effect on the society, or what is the economic benefit to the country or the institution as such. Suppose we are indigenously developing various instruments here. Why it is happening is import duty problems. So any problem to the instrument is happening, we have to ship it back to like mostly USA, Canada or something, and we have to wait for another 1 or 2 years for entire process, entire thing to happen and come back to us. So these kind of things, so indigenization is really important in our case. And coming to securing a grant, we go through various iterations once the project is conceived or the feasibility is being studied. Like there will be group level interactions and there will be intergroup level interactions where people will be giving you asking you a lot of questions, and then you have to answer, and then you refine your project or your study, and then finally we have to go to a government committee where they'll analyze all these aspects, like having done this project, what is the use that you are giving to India or your country or the institution. So is there any benefit in carrying out this project? Because carrying out a project requires a lot of energy as well as monetary expenditure, right? So is it really worth spending that much amount of energy, human energy as well as monetary energy into doing such a project? So this is how things function here, unlike the academic kind of proposals and grants.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vijayalakshmi.
Thank you, ma'am, for such comprehensive answers for all our queries. The initial presentation was an eye-opener. Thanks to Principal Ma'am and Purnima for this initiative. Thanks, Anandi Ma'am, for all the support. Thanks, my dear children, for showing so much interest in oceanography.
Anandi, over to you, Anandi.
Yes, madam. Thank you, madam. I should first of all thank you. When it comes to projects like this, so much of energy and passion that madam takes in getting all these initiated, it is phenomenal. That actually inspires all of us, to look up for opportunity. That way, first of all, my sincere thanks to our principal, madam. And of course, definitely to the guest speaker for today, Ms. Aarti Nair. No, it was an eye opener, like lot of things that we learned during this 1 hour session, I suppose. I think we should be spending some more time is what I feel, hearing you. I could recall movies like Life of Pi, Nemo and all that, that has actually shown us how much of challenge sea actually poses. But still there is very little done. We have explored the space science a lot, but definitely I think having a sprawling seabed, being a country with a very beautiful coastal region, I think young children should spend a lot of time in looking up for projects. And probably children, I think you would have got lot of inputs on that, getting inspiration from Ms. Aarti, exploring marine science. So that way, thank you, Mrs. Aarti. We would definitely like to associate with you in future projects, whatever is possible. And definitely, I should thank Ms. Purnima. No, she had always been associated with school, being an alumni. As Madam pointed out initially, everywhere, every single activity of the school, she gets engaged. And that is one quality, probably, children, that all of us should imbibe, keeping connected with the school and the society. What is it that you can give back to your institution that has given you, and give back to the society? So these are two components, value additions that we could have through this session, having an alumni as Purnima, and definitely Miss Vaishnavi. She's doing both simultaneously, giving back to the institution as well as to the society. That way, thank you, Vaishnavi. You had taken that effort to identify the innate skill in every child, and pointing out and introducing them so very beautifully. Thank you so much for that. And of course, thank you, children. You had asked questions. Probably it was even hard for teachers like us to comprehend. And it was beautifully explained by Ms. Aarti Nair, though some of the questions were repetitive. She had ensured that she was bringing a connect with the presentation, which was prepared over a short notice, and brought out a clarity into the topic of discussion. That way, I thank you all. Thank you, madam, and thank you, everyone. Thank you.